what are the workings? What are the workings that really make patience possible? Because you can't just force yourself to be patient. Well, be patient, be patient. I can't. I'm not patient. So break it down. Break it down for me so I can really do it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to do this. But first, He creates a context. In this sense, He tells you straightforward what life really is, or what to expect from life. So Allah is saying, وَلَنَبْلُوَنَّكُمْ بِشَيْءٍ مِنَ الْخَوْفِ وَالْجُوعِ. So we shall test you. He's saying, we will certainly test you with a touch of fear and famine and the loss of property, life and crops. So Allah is saying, in life, you will have to undergo moments where you will be scared. Maybe scared for your life. Maybe scared for your finances. Maybe you're going to end up one day jobless. You don't know how to feed yourself and how to feed your kids. You don't have a job. You panic, right? You're paranoid. What can I do? Sometimes, when your bank account goes down, like you don't have much, oh man, like you can't sleep. Man, what am I going to do? Like, what if something comes up? I don't have finances. Fear. That's what Allah is saying. So we shall bring about some fear. Maybe you might actually be in a situation where, Allah forbid, doctor tells you, hey, you have 3 months to live. Wow. Now your world falls apart. Your world falls apart. Allah's going to try you with fear. Things like that. Or maybe, for example, what happens, like 2008, there was this whole recession thing, right? So people had, in certain areas in the US, like people had properties that were worth like 10 million, and overnight, that was worth $100, everything. They lost it completely. There are people who went homeless. They were millionaires, they went homeless. So we should imagine the level of fear then. Like your whole world fell apart. You don't understand the world anymore. It doesn't make sense to you. That causes fear. So Allah is saying, we shall test you with fear. And we shall test you with hunger. There might be moments when you can't feed yourself. You can't feed your kids. These moments might come. And also a loss of money, finances. You might sometimes really, like the other day, some people I know, like a guy went bankrupt. He had a very good job. Really, he had a very good job. What happened? He went through a divorce. Like he came back one day home. He came home. There's nothing like, everything seems to be okay with his wife, right? He goes back home. There's no one at home. The kids are not at home. His wife is not at home. So he goes to the bedroom. He checks the closet. Clothes are gone. The toys of the kids are gone. Like he doesn't understand what's going on. Then he finds a letter for him by his wife. She says, I've had it. I've had enough. Okay? I don't want to live with you anymore. I don't want to live with you. Don't even come close to me. Okay? And that's a notice from the lawyer attached to that. If you come near me, you go into prison. I'm not going to live with you anymore. And then obviously the lawyer takes you to court. You have to pay child support. And he went through a lot, like child support, etc. And it hit him to the point that he had to go on sick leave. So he had to go and see a psychotherapist. So he wasn't getting I think he was getting 70% or 60% of his pay because of the sick leave, whatever. And that wasn't enough for him, so he had to pay child support as well. And he already had to make the payments for the car. So he thought, what should I do? And he had to pay rent. He was stuck with a year contract of rent that he has to pay. So finances didn't add up. And he was depressed and he was feeling down. So he thought, what should I do? So the only idea came up, I should do some Uber. So he started driving for Uber. So he started doing Uber and it sort of made things okay. Like he could get by. But now 6 months into the sick leave, The psychotherapist wrote a notice that he can go back to work. So he went back to work. When they checked his files, they said, you were on a sick leave and you were doing Uber. Big violation. Sacked. He was fired out of his job. Now he's jobless. And he has to pay the rent. He has to pay the car, whatever, like monthly or bi-weekly payment for the car. He doesn't have a job. And now the issue is to settle or decide what's the child support for him. His life is in a mess. Now he is going to file for bankruptcy. For bankruptcy. That happens. I mean, it happens when things just fall apart all of a sudden. So Allah is saying you're going to lose some wealth, then a loss of people. Sometimes, a loved one dies. Father, mother, brother, sister, son, spouse, all of a sudden they're gone. Accident, illness, or they don't wake up. They're going to sleep and they're gone. And that knocks you off. You don't know what to do. Your whole world falls apart. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying these things are going to happen in life. Just be ready for them. Don't expect life to be an easy ride. Well, sometimes it will be easy, but many times it will be hard. So be ready for it. If you expect to be happy all the time, you're up for a lot of disappointment. Be ready. That's the nature of life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying now, but there's a way to deal with it. So Allah is saying, وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ. Give the glad tidings to the patient ones, because they are the ones who can handle life. So you need to develop an attitude of patience. And patience is about trying to make your life meaningful. So whatever happens, I'm going to handle this. I'm going to be ready for it. I'm going to accept it, and I'm going to minimize my loss. I'm not going to be a naive person going through life, because, man, I'll be slapped a lot in life if that's how I go through it. So I have to be ready for life. It's going to come at me. Okay, fine, that's what I expect. I'll be ready. I'll deal with it accordingly. Sometimes you're going to get completely blown away. Fine, that's part of life. I'll be thrown out of my feet. I'll be thrown out of balance. Fine, that's what life. I need to put myself back together. But when you are too naive, man, you can develop mental illness, by the way. You know what psychologists say? How mental illness happens? They say every human being has weaknesses, natural genetic weaknesses in their character, by the way. They're just like a balloon. There's a weak point in the balloon. If you blow the balloon up to a certain point, it's going to blow up in the weakest point. That's where it's going to start, blowing. The same with human beings. Most of the people who have mental illnesses, it's not like they were born with a mental illness, but we're all born with a certain level of tolerance, certain level of patience. And when life really strikes you hard and the pressure is unbearable, you're going to blow up in the weakest point. With some people, it's depression. With some people, it's schizophrenia. With some people, it's anxiety. With some people, it's bipolar. With some people, it's maybe, psychosis. Again, everyone is going to blow. They have a tendency, after the threshold, you're going to fall into something that is within your genetic makeup. Okay, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying here, you can handle whatever life throws at you if you develop an attitude of patience. And that's, by the way, taking life meaningfully. So Allah is going to tell us how to be patient. That's the secret to it. وَبَشِّرِ الصَّابِرِينَ الَّذِينَ إِذَا أَصَابَتْهُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالُوا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ. Who are the patient ones? Glad tidings to the patient ones who patiently endure. They are the ones who, when faced with a disaster, they say, surely to Allah we belong, and to Him we will all return. So they will say, to Allah we belong, inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we belong, and we shall return to Him. Okay, we might fall in the trap of thinking, they just say, to Allah we belong and to Him we return. Saying that alone will not benefit you, by the way. Allah says they say it, meaning they believe in it. And then they say it. They put themselves in that attitude, that understanding of life, and then they express it. That makes them patient. How is it? Let's break it down, by the way. That's very powerful. They say, Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. You know what that does? That's a complete shift in how you see the world and how you see yourself. Because when you're hit by the calamity, if you are trapped in yourself, you're going to say, why does this happen to me? Like, oh, I can't deal with this. What am I going to do? You're trapped in yourself. But how do you develop an attitude of patience? Change your worldview. You're saying, Inna lillah. I belong to Allah. I'm not even mine. I'm not even mine. I don't belong to myself. I don't even own myself. So you detach. You take yourself out of this calamity, literally. You detach. You come out of it. I belong to Allah. That means Allah owns me. He can do whatever He wants. I'm going to leave it for Allah. I'm going to take myself out. I belong to Allah. Allah, do with me whatever you want. I belong to Allah. We belong to Allah. And to Him we shall return. So now you build the strategic view. It's basically, ultimately, we're going to return to Allah. This will be over. This will be over. And whatever happens at the end of the day, we will go back to Allah. And if you have done good, I will end up in paradise, regardless of what I go through in this life. You see the 2 points? You pull yourself out. I don't belong to myself. I belong to Allah. Oh Allah, you do whatever you want with me. I'm going to be content with that. I'm going to let Allah be in charge. You detach. And then, what do? You expand your vision. Because by the way, when humans fall in a calamity, what do? They're stuck in the moment. You see your predicament as endless. You're stuck in it for the rest of your life. That's how you see it. You're trapped. So what you do, you zoom out. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So you expand your time horizon. You expand your time horizon and you sort of see your life like birth, death, after death. When on this line, when you are in the calamity, you are stuck in a point. But what you do when you say Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, you zoom out. You zoom out. You start to see that point that you were trapped in, that seemed to be the whole world for you. Now you pull yourself out of it and you see it as a dot in your lifeline. It's a long lifeline, man. There was a long time before that. There's a long time after that. And then after death, there's a longer period of time and all will be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you zoom out, that calamity becomes very small and very tiny. And try it out, by the way. Try it out. It's extremely powerful mental exercise. So you're no longer trapped in the moment. You look at the whole thing. You start to look at life from a distance. And then you see the good end of it is that we are going to return to Allah. So yeah, maybe things will not go as I want, but as long as I remain thankful to Allah and true to Allah, ultimately everything will be alright. So it's a mindset. That's how patience happens. So you want to build patience, work on these 2 things. Learn to remind yourself that you don't even belong to yourself. You belong to Allah and He does what He wants. Number 2, build that strategic outlook on life. Put yourself out of the moment, zoom out, and see the whole spectrum of life, including your next life. You're going to see whatever you go through is very tiny, small. This will be over. Because just maybe a few days, maybe a few years down the line, I'll be not here, I'll be here. And that will be over. It will be history one day. That's a very powerful exercise. If you know how to do it well, if you keep rehearsing it, by the way, it really